Welcome everybody to the April 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call of members, please?
Rich John.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Present.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Veronica Pillar.
Here.
Lee Shurtleff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Shauna Black has asked to be excused. Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Susan Curry.
Here.
Deborah Dawson is asked to be excused. Dan Klein.
Here.
14 members present, or 12 members present, sorry about that.
All right, we have a quorum. First item tonight is a visit from our poet laureate, Janie Bibby. Janie, do you want to come on up to the front, wherever you're comfortable, but this is a good one, and have at it. This is National Poetry Month, I believe, right?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I'll be reading two poems. The first one is from my book entitled, Keep Moving. This poem is entitled, Next. Next is waiting for you. You walk toward it every day, can't miss it. You will stumble into it. Completely unaware of what now is not your care. Next will walk with you when you get there. You have no choice. Next is everywhere. As soon as your comfort level is at a 10, next is waiting to take you back to start again. Get used to next, it is your friend, and will be with you until the end of what is now, the beginning of what is new. You and next will make it through whatever is waiting around the bend. No need to rush, no need to hide. Next is always by your side if you are ready and if you are not. Next is worthy of your trust. Keep walking with next. We all must. It will become whatever is now. That's just how life goes. The next poem is from my book entitled, Whenever and Wherever. This poem is called The Future. Past, present, future. The past, long gone. The present, right here. The future, ah, yes. That's what we long for. It will be much better than the past or the present. The future, that mythical time when all will be well. Life will be better than good. No worries, cleaner air, fresher water. We will be thinner. The 10 pounds we've been losing will be gone, never to return. The future, our problems will be solved. We look at the past and shake our heads. We endure the present, knowing it does not meet our vision of how things should be. But just wait. The future is coming. We can see it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy National Poetry Month to everybody. Next up is a proclamation. Greg Mezzi, can you come on up, please, or wherever you want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it from right here, and then I'll come up to hand that out. This proclamation is for Fair Housing Month, and we're joined by Sarah Wisdorf, the Executive Director of the Ithaca Board of Realtors, Michelle Smith, the President of the Ithaca Board of Realtors, and Jala Bayo, who's in charge of the Committee for Fair Housing and some other initiatives at the IBR. I'm going to read an abbreviated version of the proclamation. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas Tompkins County is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. And resolve that Tompkins County Legislature does hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Fair Housing Month in Tompkins County. Resolve further that Tompkins County, as an inclusive community, is committed to fair housing and to promoting appropriate activities by private and public entities to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Tompkins County. So happy Fair Housing Month.
Thank you very much for this.
Thanks.
You're welcome to say a few words if you'd like.
We're shy.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you. So announcements of executive sessions. We will have an executive session tonight. I will announce the purpose at the end. And for reordering of business, I would like to, we have some people waiting for an appointment, so I'd like to take care of that business now, if that's acceptable to everybody. It'll be quick. Mike Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to take off the consent agenda Resolution A, the appointment to the Tompkins County Cortland Community College TC3 Board of Trustees, and I so move.
Is there a second? Ann Corman seconds.
And I'd like to speak to it if I may.
Please.
This is the reappointment of our longest-serving Tompkins County trustee on the Board of Trustees of the college, and that is Roxanne Buck. And Roxanne joins us tonight, as well as President Amy Kremenek of Tompkins Cortland Community College, and would certainly invite either of them to, or both of them to speak if they'd like to. Or you don't have to.
I'll just, well, I'm not as shy as maybe some other people that are, but I'd just like to say that I've appreciated the support from the legislature over the many years that I have been a trustee at Tompkins Cortland. You know, we all should be very proud of what's going on at Tompkins Cortland, especially under Amy's leadership. And it certainly would be my privilege to continue in that capacity.
Thanks for that. Amy?
I just wanted to second that, if I may. I appreciate the support of the Tompkins County Legislature for Roxanne's appointment. She has been steadfast in her leadership and her wisdom and her advocacy on behalf of the people of this community. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thanks for that.
Is there any discussion? All right, then let's have a vote on Resolution A.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
12 ayes. Resolution adopted.
Thank you.
Thanks for continuing to do your work. President Kremenek, thank you for joining us tonight. All right, we are going to move on then. We are up to privilege of the floor for the public. Privilege of the floor comes with some rules, which I will read in just a minute. If there's anybody that is interested in speaking tonight that hasn't already done so, please go to the back of the room, find yourself a blue form, fill it out, and bring it on up. Rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. The only blue form I have tonight is for Zach Wynn, and one on Zoom, I'm told.
Good evening, folks. My name is Zach Wynn. I'd like to direct your attention to an editorial I recently wrote regarding Ithaca's unsanctioned drug encampments. I sent it to you via email not long ago. I will leave the details for you to read on your own. My specific question is if there are any inaccuracies that you could notice in what I wrote. I've sent the editorial to a number of individuals, including City Manager Molinoff and members of council, and I have received absolutely no feedback or criticism about the substance of my editorial. I really hope I am wrong about what I wrote. As I have stated previously, I believe the city's plan to direct people to the exception zone is incredibly irresponsible, akin to tossing unwanted people into a trash heap out of sight from civilization. I've included a link to a Google Drive with photos I took in the area of Jungle 2 behind Lowe's in the exception zone this last Sunday on Easter. There's a new structure behind the fence in the rear of Walmart, and in the photos you can see a number of presumably stolen bicycles in an encampment behind Lowe's. This encampment, which I call an open drug scene, is a cause of great concern to the residents of Nate's Floral Estates and was discussed at length at a recent meeting with Alderperson Phoebe Brown. And I'd like to ask members of the legislature to reach out to residents of Nate's and consider attending future meetings to listen to their concerns. The elder residents of Nate's are living in constant fear and vigilance against theft, violence, and other activities emanating from the encampments. At the recent meeting of the Community Police Board, Alderperson Brown said that City Manager Molinoff would be addressing the city's plan to manage the encampments at tomorrow's council meeting, with an RFP being issued to provide some form of services. Looking at the agenda for tomorrow's meeting, City Manager Molinoff's report makes no mention of the encampments or the city's plan to address them. I don't think that the city has any serious intention to end the encampments or provide meaningful services to their inhabitants. Legislator Mezzi's suggestion to extend Code Blue is the closest thing to a plan I have discerned, and as I point out in my editorial, the overdoses and assaults that occur routinely at Econo Lodge must be taken into consideration, with another occurring just 16 hours ago, and I'm going to send you evidence of that. I again request that the legislature take this issue out of the city's hands once and for all and shut down these criminal hotspots before more people die. I would say that doing nothing is not an option, but it clearly is. Please choose another option. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time.
We have one member of the public on Zoom. I don't have a name. Mike.
Hi, yes. My name's Mike, and I'm a resident here in the jungle. Been down here for 30 years. Last 15, 16, I've had to be here. And in that time, I've seen the population grow tremendously of homeless people, and the drug addiction, grow with it. And as a result of, all these needles, after Mayor Savazzi said, needle use is okay, we've seen a tremendous increase You see needles everywhere. I'm tired of picking them up. I'm tired of, not being able to leave my place, for fear somebody's gonna steal from me or set fire to my place, because they think they're what, entitled to your stuff? It's ridiculous. I'm tired of the thefts, and something needs to be done. I say take away their needles. Might, cut down on some of the addictions. Other than that, I really don't know what the, answer would be. I know putting bathrooms down here isn't the answer. They'd be destroyed within a week, vandalized, trashed. If anything, take that money, give it to the city workers, as hazardous pay. They're the ones that deserve it. They take a chance on getting a needle in the foot or in their hand every time they handle garbage or whatever. Guys ain't looking to see a needle go floating down a city sewer, but, it happens and it shouldn't. I say, give that money to them. They deserve it. They're the real heroes. Make these kids grow up, go send them to rehab, do something. I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to be done. Yeah, I'm done.
Mike, thank you for joining us tonight. Next up is privilege of the floor for municipal officials. We have Pierre St. Perez from the city of Ithaca. Pierre, come on up. Any microphone you'd like.
Hey there, good to see you all again. So over the past month, the city of Ithaca has continued to work on our short-term rental legislation, which should be up not tomorrow's meeting, but next month for hopefully a final vote. Besides that, we've been working through our new system with more regular meetings and a distinct workflow, establishing the new administration's priorities and queuing up what we want to see the city doing going forward. We also received a fantastic presentation on what the city and the county are doing together in terms of making our community more safe and providing mental health care. Yeah, I think that's the short version. Hit me with questions.
Questions, Randy?
Yes, thank you. I think it's great you guys are meeting more often. I think that'll help you a lot. Is homelessness one of the priorities that you're working on?
Homelessness is absolutely one of the priorities that we've made very clear is something that we want to see the city moving towards focusing on. And to my memory, and there's a lot on the city manager's plate right now, but to my memory, we are expecting to receive some form of an ongoing plan within the month, this month.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Pierre? Veronica?
Hi, Pierre. Maybe it's a subset of that question, but in addition to the public comments this week, we had a couple people last week coming here from Nate's and saying different, maybe conflicting things about the city's encampment, red zone, green zone, whatnot policy. Can you remind us what the current state of that part is?
As I understand it, and I want to be clear, this is my personal understanding. I was not on council when this policy was written and do not have a mastery of it. But as I understand it, as it was passed, there are green zones, which are zones where it is legal for people to camp. And there are red zones, which are areas where it is not legal for people to camp. I could be mistaken. Again, this is not my...
Have there been any changes to the policy in this calendar year yet?
No. There have been no changes to the policy that was passed last calendar year over the past several months.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments for Pierre? Thank you so much for coming and sharing information and answering questions.
It's always good to see all of you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor for legislators. No? Okay, let's move on. Veronica.
2 days ago, March 31st was Transgender Day of Visibility. So I just wanted to honor that for a moment. I don't have a lot to say, but trans folks, other non-binary folks, whether you call yourself trans or not, we see you, you're great. Keep being visible or not as it suits you. It's a pretty horrific time in this country at least, and maybe the world at large, although I'm less familiar with it, in some places to be trans and just exist and do things like use public bathrooms and get medical care. But we live in a relatively good place for that. The city of Ithaca has declared itself a trans sanctuary city. The county hasn't, but that's a thing we could work on doing. And we're at least here in this city and in New York, we're working harder on protections for trans people surviving so that we, look, I'm ambiguous on that myself, can also thrive. That's all.
Randy Brown.
Yes, thank you, Dan. The Cornell Crop Extension Facilities Committee and Board took a tour of the 4-H camp on Lower Creek Road, and of all the facilities that are there, there's roughly 4 buildings, and got an understanding the programs going on there. They do run a daycare up to pre-K 4 days a week, and then after-school program at the Kiwanis building there. One of the reasons we toured that area is because some of the buildings do need repair. There hasn't been a big plan for doing anything other than fixing things when they're broken. But also, Cornell Crop Extension was donated some land that is 1 parcel away from the parcel that they currently are located. Trying to figure out how that's going to work is not contiguous. So I'm just wanted to let you know that's what's going on.
Thank you. How big is that new piece of land?
I think about 6 acres.
Okay, nice.
Might be, that's usable. It's also a wetland, so.
Okay. Lee, did you have your hand up? No. Greg, you did, sorry.
Just want to give a shout out to the public, what's the communications?
Information Advisory Board.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was mixing a bunch of things up. And Dominic for putting together a little meet and greet for some elected officials and members of the press, just to get to know them better. I thought that was really valuable. Also, Congressman Molinaro was here in Tompkins County and met with friends of Stewart Park and some folks from the Racker Center to look at the accessibility around the Stewart Park playground, and also met with folks at the Tompkins County Chamber of Commerce, along with, I'm sure, other places, to talk about his Think Differently initiatives. If anybody's interested in what those are, thinkdifferently.net, but really challenging individuals, communities, organizations to think differently how they serve those that may have different needs than just that have different needs. So I thought that was really helpful. It's always great to see our elected officials from Washington and or Albany here in the community. So just thanks for that opportunity to engage with him on those initiatives. So that's all.
Other legislators, privilege of the floor. Mike Lane.
Last Friday, I was pleased to be invited and to attend the county-sponsored event for recognition of Vietnam veterans. It was a follow-up, of course, to the proclamation we had done here at the legislature, which was read at the event. Also, our state senator, Leah Webb, and our assemblywoman, Anna Kellis, both were there and spoke. And a particularly interesting part of the program was a number of students from Ithaca City School District who had actually had a trip to Vietnam. And they brought back and talked about how well they were received and the various sites that they had seen over there. For those of us who had grown up in the Vietnam War era, it was an eye-opener because they talked about how appreciative the Vietnam people their own age were to have the Americans visit over there. And what a difference 50 years can make, huh? So I really want to congratulate J.R. Claiborne for putting that together with grant funding, and it was very appropriately done.
Ann Corman.
Thank you. I attended a meeting recently at the Learning Web, and let's see, Olin Mack, the executive director, and also Christopher Spahn, who is our executive director of our workforce development, coordinated that meeting. And they have numerous agencies throughout the community that they are working with to help youth and adults who are homeless or who are at risk for homelessness. And it was amazing to see how much they are coordinating their services and to help folks. And one of the things that they kept saying was one of the best things that we can do is help make sure that there are services that are well-funded so that they can pay their staff and they can have supplies to help these folks, especially for those who are at risk of homelessness. It's cheaper and it's much easier to help those folks, which we've heard before. It's to help those folks to prevent them becoming homeless than to help somebody once they are homeless. And also, never mind the trauma that does create for those folks. So anyway, just wanted to thank those folks for letting me sit in on their meeting last week.
Thank you. Amanda Champion.
Thanks. Public service announcement that Monday is the solar eclipse. We have rescheduled meetings here. Schools are out. Some schools are taking field trips. From here, you will have to drive about an hour and a half north or so. But remember, don't look at the sun without special glasses. Most libraries are giving them out. You probably still have time to order them online. You will burn your eyeballs out if you look directly at the sun. And also a reminder that there is a difference between a partial eclipse, which is what you'll see here in Ithaca, and a total eclipse, which is where the entirety of the sun is covered up, and the world will look different. And people have said it's a very, I've never seen one, I hope to on Monday. People have said it's a very emotional and sort of shocking experience. So I hope that folks get to experience that and do it safely. Be careful. Lots of people are going to be out there driving, and hopefully we can all enjoy it. So thanks.
Yeah. Lee.
I was going to defer to Mike Lane. I thought Mike might make mention, and I will, that for those that are listening to us live, that today is Presidential Primary Day. And there are over 40,000 people in this county who are eligible to vote in either the Democratic or Republican presidential primaries. So you have until 9 o'clock, and we have a large number of community volunteers, election inspectors that are out there working, and they would enjoy seeing some people. I was number 54 at my polling place at 4:30, which is not an overwhelming turnout. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lee, I did vote. And it was nice to use the new machines for the first time.
Any other legislators for privilege of the floor? Okay. I do have a chair's report tonight. I was kind of inspired by Holly Mosier's recent county attorney report where she talked about all the things she's been doing since the last meeting. So I'm going to run through some things that county business that I've attended to, events, or read about since our last meeting 2 weeks ago. And I know that some people may mention some of these in other contexts too, that's fine. I attended the reception for our new rapid medical response hires. And the program started today. There had been some fear that there were not enough emergency medical technicians in this area, that we might not get a good response to our call for employees, but it turns out we had 34 qualified applicants for 9 positions, so that was an excellent result. Let's see, I saw legislators Ann Corman and Rich John there. I think there were some other legislators that had stopped by at other times of the day. Mike, you were, okay, all right. From the new Roots School, the participation in government class came to Chambers last week to hear and to ask questions about local government. There were 12 students along with their instructor, Ben Lawrence, and they sat here in these seats that you're all sitting in right now, which I hope made them a little better able to visualize themselves stepping into these leadership roles someday. I'd really been looking forward to this event, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was really great talking to these young people. Let's see, I attended a ribbon cutting for a new social services agency in Tompkins County. It's called Youth Assertive Community Treatment, which is usually shortened to Youth ACT. This is a quote from their website about what they do. Quote, an intensive at-home intervention that brings treatment and services to youth with significant mental health challenges and their families so they can remain at home and together. This organization has an office at the South Hill Business Park, but their main office, they are out of Binghamton. So they got a grant to extend their services into Tompkins County, I think also into Tioga County. I did see legislator Mike Sigler there, and I could say for myself, this is a very welcome service and a very welcome new agency to the county. Also in the last 2 weeks, there was the Economic Summit that was put on by Ithaca Area Economic Development, and maybe some other, well, Greg Mezzi was there. Maybe he will speak about it. I'm not sure if anyone else was there. I don't think so. Oh, Mike Sigler was there, yep. Let's see. I also attended that gathering of elected officials and members of the local press. I thought it was really great. It was, let's see, who else did I see? I saw Amanda Champion, Ann Corman, Veronica Pillar, and Greg Mezzi. They were all there. I'll mention one thing that got said there is by a local journalist who said that it bothers him when he hears this comment that people say things like, local journalism, such it is, or the little bit that's left or something like that. And this person said that bothered them, and I understood why it bothered them. So if I've ever said it in public, I'm not going to be saying it anymore. And I actually do believe that, I've been in Ithaca for, it's coming up on 40 years. Local journalism has gotten a lot better here, right? We went through a dip when there wasn't much, but really in the last 10 years, I think there's some really good coverage. And to continue that theme of local news media, in the most recent edition of the NYSAC News, that's the New York State Association of Counties, there's an article by Dominic Recchio. It's called Supporting Local Laws, How Counties Can Advocate for an Expanded State Definition of Official Newspaper. I've heard a rumor that the movie rights are being negotiated for this, but that's true. Let's see. A few more things. Oh yes, the other newsletter we get called the County News. It's from NACO, the National Association of Counties. They mentioned that they have a theme for the month of April. The theme is Forward Together. And I know that's kind of just a bland phrase, but it resonated with me because I've been thinking a lot lately. It just really feels inside that I really feel like what we really need now is unity, that's the thing that is going to get us through the next year or so. I know unity means different things to different people, but nevertheless, I was just really glad to see that theme. And also in the National Association of Counties news, I saw an article about a children's book that they just published, or that they're putting out. It's called The Marvelous Adventures of County Land. It's generated by artificial intelligence.
Oh my God.
And yes, this is extremely corny, but it was kind of, I was kind of like delighted actually to read through this little children's book and to see all these characters in there that we know, the highway department and the IT department and the 911 operators and the assessor and on and on. So I actually wanted to read just a few quick sections. Here's the cover of the book. I think the illustrations are AI generated also, though I'm not sure about that. All right. Marvelous counties we'll explore with public officials we all adore. Each one special, tailored to soar, adventures await with wonders galore. In the courthouse so grand, the county board, a stellar band, meet as a routine, think and debate, budgeting to invest, what plans to create. With a visionary plan and keen insights, county administrators work day and night, managing and organizing and exploring it all with the noble goal, a better future for us all. And then this nice illustration I'm going to put up in the office back there. And Lisa, you should have this.
How can we get a copy?
It's online, and you can either download it or order it. I'm not sure if there's money involved. I didn't order it. I just downloaded a few pages. All right, thank you for your indulgence and all that. Next up are, let's see, special topic presentation or discussion. I'm not doing that tonight. Okay. Next up then is report by County Administrator Lisa Holmes with your brand new AI generated rhyming couplet. You're on.
Thank you. Happy Poetry Month to us all. I do have a number of items to update you all on. First, I'm sure you're aware the New York State budget is late. There's several items still on the table for negotiation, and we're hoping that there will be progress this week. We'll see whether and how this impacts the timing of our budget retreat. I'm hoping it won't be an issue, but we will stay posted on that. But there's been good news for county administration in our budget process. Our second search for a budget director was fruitful. We've selected a candidate and she's accepted. Corey Post will be joining the county as our new budget director on April 19th. Corey will be coming to us from TC3, where she served as the Associate Director of Budget and Finance for the last 4 years, and she also held the role of Interim Comptroller for the better part of a year. She has a background in accounting and is also studying for and close to receiving her MBA. And we'll be pleased to welcome Corey on board, and maybe nobody will be more pleased than Norma, who's been filling 2 roles for over a year. So we're glad that she'll be coming. Hi. Celebration.
Was that AI-generated music?
In other news today, we had our first mediation session with our white-collar negotiations, and I saw it as a productive session. We plan to meet again April 24th. Another note on the Rapid Medical Response Program, which did launch this morning and has been providing service all day. I heard from Mike Steitley. The first call this morning came in at 9:20. It was an alpha level call, and that's a level which no local rescue units respond to. The call came in for a hip injury from an individual who lives by themselves. The county's rapid medical response unit arrived at the scene 7 minutes later and attended to the individual while waiting for the transport unit. And the transport unit arrived after 22 minutes. This is not meant in any way as a criticism of the transport unit. It's just illustrating the where our program is designed to fill the gap. So the takeaway from this first call was that without the service, this person would have been alone on the ground in their home with a hip injury for 22 minutes until the transport unit arrived. So out of the gate, or at least with this example, it appears that the program is doing what it's designed to do. So that's a great illustration. On that topic, at the March 28th TCOG meeting, a resolution passed with unanimous support from municipalities, urging the county to assume the full costs of the Rapid Medical Response Program. They liken the services to those of the sheriff, which crosses municipal boundaries with no way of providing for the stability of the funding if one or more municipalities refuses to pay into the cost-sharing model. We still have a follow-up meeting of municipalities planned for April 11th for further discussion. I was tasked by the legislature with negotiating a cost-sharing agreement for this program, and I'm open to further direction from this body on how to proceed. So I have other updates, but I can pause there if anyone wants to talk about this at this point.
Amanda.
Just a question about that resolution that TCOG passed. Was it like, maybe you don't know this, but was it just the supervisors and the people who were there, or had they all spoken to all of their boards and this was like coming, I guess, like, was it the individuals at TCOG or was it the full boards of the different municipalities? Do you know?
I believe it was the representatives from TCOG on behalf of their municipalities, but I can't speak to the level of outreach to their boards. Dan, I'm not sure whether you are aware of that.
I mean, the only one I'm aware of that passed the resolution was Enfield. There might have been others.
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to understand if it was them as representatives individually or actually direction from their whole board. So thanks.
Rich?
Thanks for the report, Lisa. I would favor continuing to have that meeting on April 11th. I know there was some talk about whether it was necessary, but I think there should be further discussion on this issue. Thanks.
Randy?
Yes, Lisa, thank you. So for this year, the expenses, and I think there's a resolution on that later on about how the expenses will move. Did we get a full grant to cover the county's expenses this year, or?
Yeah, it's expected that the grant we receive from the state will cover the 2024 expenses for the program, fully cover it.
Okay, but nothing in 25?
Correct, it's 1 year only.
Thank you.
Mike Lane.
We appreciate TCOG. It's been a great discussion group. We can't always agree with in TCOG over the years. There have been things that people have been disagreeable about, not disagreeable, but have disagreed about. But it's a lot better than it used to be before we had TCOG, because I can remember that. When it used to be an effort to, what can we pin on the county from some of the towns, and that's been a long time past, and I'm glad about that. But I really agree with what Rich just said. I think we need to proceed with this. I think that the municipalities need to have a dog in this fight. They need to be a working partners with it. I think the level of support from the towns and villages and city or other places that don't, for those places that would come into needing to contribute, I think that can be something open to discussion. But I don't think that the county should just automatically take this on. There are a lot of things that could be given to the county. We could do all the roads. Well, we do all the bridges. That goes back to the 1940s. We could do a lot of other things, I suppose, but it's important that those municipalities, particularly the ones that have land use control, have, as I said, a dog in the fight, be an equal partner in what we're doing.
Ann.
Thank you. And I would prefer that we don't have another meeting, or us directing you to have another meeting, Lisa. my thoughts, I've said these before, but I think what it comes down to is that this is a service that encompasses all municipalities, and I don't see how we can parse it up. I think some folks have said if we don't engage the municipalities, that this could be a disincentive for the municipalities that do have services to not do them, but not to have them. And when I've talked to municipalities that do have robust services, they do that because they want to do it, or their municipality, chooses to spend the money to do that. And just the same as the municipalities might have a local police force or public safety unit, they don't get rid of it based on that we have a sheriff's department. So I think we can only, when I've talked to different folks who work in emergency services in the county, they say that this actually helps them to do their job. This supports them, might lessen the amount of hours that they have to work, but it really supports them because they said not only could they use more pay and more support, but they're really scared out there to not be able to get to people in time. So this helps them, they said, to be able to sleep at night, to know that the county kind of, what they said to me, some of the folks said to me was, we have their back. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Lee.
Few thoughts. The conversation is important, and it can't just stop with one vote by one group that thinks the county should take it on 100%. I understand the sentiment. I'm less concerned about the dollar amounts than I am about continuing to have a broad discussion about the future of emergency services in Tompkins County. As far as a dog in the fight, all the dogs in the fight up until today were theirs. We're the towns, we're the villages, we're the fire districts. We're stepping in to provide some assistance. And I think that more important to me than a cost sharing or cost contribution is a memorandum of understanding and an acknowledgement that the county is stepping forward to assist where our municipalities are unable to continue to provide the level of service that they have taken on for generations. And my fear moving forward is this. There's nothing that says that a town of Groton or a town of Dryden or a town of Ulysses, when things get a little bit tougher, and they're going to get tougher, are going to be able to step back and say, well, we've done it all these years, we can't do it anymore. Lansing did it, Caroline did it with the Slaterville ambulance, others could do it. Does the county now set the precedent that we're going to move forward and take it on 100%? We're finding out the commercial ambulance services cannot provide an economical response outside of major dense populations, or at least they struggle to do so. All of our ambulance services today, who traditionally have received help from the commercials, are now in reverse providing help back to those commercial services because of their personnel shortages. This is industry-wide, this is nationwide. The second part of this is that it's not just with the basic life support system, it's also with advanced life support. And if you talk to Michael Steitley about the people that applied for these positions and took them, a good number of those people are advanced life support people. They also provide basic skills. But you're finding that those who are paramedics, those who are advanced life support, those who are even basics, are not just working singular jobs. They're working for 2, 3, 4 agencies. They're going to burn out. There aren't enough people coming forward. The next crisis is going to be in advanced life support. Where does the county fall into that? Have we set a precedent that we're going to step forward? Are we going to see this continue to happen where we're doing it 12 hours a day? The pressure is going to be on us within the next year or so to go to 24 hours a day. Right. The next step is also going to be in the fire service, who has traditionally provided that first response. The fire service is unable to provide levels of support beyond basic fire services, but we're going to see fire departments begin to shut down. Is the county going to be expected to step into that role? Therefore, we need to be looking ahead and not be expected to take on these things without some corresponding commitment and corresponding level of support from those who have traditionally raised the taxes to provide those services. The conversation needs to continue. I could care less in many ways about how much the towns contribute back. What I care about is that there be an acknowledgement that these have traditionally been their services and that we are going to work together to continue to provide those services, not just for basic response, but advanced life support and our fire services. The conversation has to continue. Thank you.
Said. Other legislators? Veronica.
I think we should do what Lee said. It sounded good.
Me too.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Lisa? And if not, she'll go on with her report.
Thank you.
Was that the direction you wanted?
I've gotten good, I think we will continue the conversation. I heard what everyone said, and we will proceed with the April 11th meeting, and I thank you for your input. The last thing I wanted to update you on is around our congressionally directed spending applications. They're due this Friday. And once again, this is, it's a strangely timed program in that we're not into our budget process, and there is not a project within our current capital plan that we believe is eligible for this funding, and the timing doesn't quite coincide for it. So we researched many other potential projects, some that have been brought forward to us, for instance, a CDL site. All of the projects that have been brought to us thus far have we found to be ineligible for this funding stream. So we have one option, which is not to submit an application on behalf of the county for congressionally directed spending this year. We could do that. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that Terry Carroll and Arel Lamaro have generated a list of green facilities, green energy projects that are currently not in the capital plan, but include equipment or other projects that we know, other items that are coming to the end of their useful life and are going to need replacing. One such project includes HVAC replacement slated for, that is needed in the next 3 to 5 years at the Department of Emergency Response. It would mean a geothermal project as its replacement. And this looks to be a project where if we were successful, we could receive up to 50% of the cost through a congressionally directed spending grant. The total cost of this project is $4 million. Approval of the legislature is not required for us to apply for grants. Approval is required to accept grants. However, it's advisable that the legislature be fully aware that if we're pursuing this grant and we receive a partial grant award, the county will be obligated to pay the remainder, and it's not currently in our capital plan. So, and unfortunately, these grant opportunities and the timelines don't align well with our budget process or our committee schedule. So that's why I'm bringing it to you this evening. So prior to submitting an application, my plan was to do this, and Terry and Arel are joining us via Zoom tonight. Terry is in the process of writing up a project description for the congressionally directed spending application, and my plan was to send it out to the legislature so that you're fully aware of the scope of the project, the potential funding award, and the potential risks to the county or obligations to the county to pay if we receive a partial award. If there's a consensus to move forward with the application, we can do so. and Terry and Arel plan to fully inform the F&I committee about this and the status of our green facilities projects, which we're completing phase 1 and the phase 2 is on hold, and they wanted to bring that up at the next April 18th F&I committee in preparation for the capital planning for 2025 and beyond. So I'm happy to entertain questions, or Terry and Arel are here if you have specific questions related to these projects.
Mike Lane.
I would hate to see us pass up the opportunity to get some grant funding from the feds. And I would like to see us try for this. The question I've got is, we're about to build a fire station, multiple use building out there. Is there some way to make a geothermal project that would function for both of them?
So again, I would have to defer to Terry and Arel and possibly Roxanne. What I do know about the airport rescue firefighting equipment storage facility at the airport, that was, we received a congressionally directed spending award for the completion of that project. That is part of the airport's improvement plan with the FAA. I can't tell you the heating system for that, or whether it would be feasible to combine that with this other project that is already in the planning process.
Could we ask CNS?
So Arel and I discussed this a little bit earlier, and I think part of the issue is it's quite a distance between where the emergency response building is and where the new airport building is going to be going in, and I think the distance is just probably too great to combine the geothermal for each of those buildings. Another potential issue has to do with timelines. The way we've worked with this, with the earmarks before, is that it takes quite a long time to find out, and then quite a long time to even get to the process where you're contracting and then enacting the project. And so I think these two projects are a little bit on a different timeline, one already having kind of accepted the money and one just kind of going into the cycle. So even the ability to have them at the same time and have that kind of parallel streams reduce the cost, I don't know that that's going to necessarily be able to happen either, just because of the different time frames. But the distance is the main issue with combining the system there.
Any idea what that distance is?
In talking with Arel, I think it's about 3/4 of a mile, and then depending on if you're dodging around buildings or being able to do a direct path, it could be up to a mile.
It's because the current building is going to be relocated, I believe.
I didn't realize it was that far apart.
Other questions or comments for Lisa's report? Rich?
I think go get the money. If we're forced to examine our capital plan to figure out how to pay for the other side, that goes in the folder marked good problems. It'll be hard, we'll have to figure it out, but getting half of the $4 million would be a really, really good thing for the taxpayers. Thanks.
Ann?
Did you mention, or do we know the age of this HVAC system there at Dewar currently?
So the building was built in 2004, and the system is still original to that point. So it's about almost a 20-year-old system. It's certainly reaching end of life. I think Arel would like to replace it, and I'm speaking for Arel. He's on the way back from something, so I don't know if he's able to take up the phone right now while he's driving. But it's, I think, slated for replacement hopefully within the next 3 to 4 years. This is a critical facility. Obviously, we can't have the heating and cooling going out in this facility. Already, they're having to do kind of some repairs and fixes to the chiller that exists there. So, getting on top of this is a high priority.
And do you know a figure if we were to replace it with a traditional system and not geothermal?
I don't have that number in front of me, but we can certainly get it.
Lee. Sorry, are you done, Ann? Lee.
Just want to be clear in my mind, Lisa, when you started, were you talking more broadly about grant opportunities for green facilities for across the board or specific to the complex that we've just focused on here the last couple minutes?
For the congressionally directed spending request, we had targeted this one project at this geothermal project at Department of Emergency Response.
But your grant opportunities might exist across the spectrum.
Correct.
And then my follow-up to that would be that one question and one comment. The question would be typically what would a local share be? Could it be zero with an earmark versus 25% or something of what a grant application consists of?
So I'm going to say something, and Bridget can correct me if I'm wrong, but the expectation is with the congressionally directed, the earmarks, that the local share will be 50%. That could be further offset by other grants, but we don't expect that the congressionally directed spending will be greater than 50, the grant award will be greater than 50%. Is that right, Bridget? Yeah, okay, got that.
And my point to it is that whatever you get through the grants is going to be substantial, and I would think that you would want that sentiment to push you forward to make these grant applications, knowing that we will have to amend the capital program if that comes in. But if it falls within the goals of what the county policy is, I don't think you've got any choice but to pursue those.
Greg.
So I'm all in Rich's camp with free money is a good problem to have, but also recognize that nothing is free. Obviously, there's a local share. We're saying that it's $4 million to put a geothermal system at Dewar alone.
Correct.
Okay. Before I would get behind that, I would want to know what some sort of energy efficient alternative to heating and cooling would be, because even at 2 million, that seems a lot. And I know that this is a stretch, but I feel like every year come budget time, we're in a stretch. So even though it's available, I don't necessarily know if we should take it because of the 50% local share, if there's a cheaper alternative, because I don't know, I feel like you could put in some heat pumps or something else there that was just as efficient in some way that would be far less than a whole geothermal system. I understand the desire to do that, but if it's not in our capital plan, I think that there's a lot of capital priorities that we have coming up that are going to put a significant strain on our capital plan. And I don't know if a nice to have versus a need to have are the conversations we should be having right now. Because I think in our community, there's a lot of have to haves that we're going to have to put capital funds towards.
So I was able to quickly pull up some stuff here. So we looked at a couple of different options for the emergency response building. One of the projects that we looked at was kind of looking at that hybrids gas slash heat pump option that you're kind of referencing there, Greg. The price tag for that one, an initial price tag was about $2 million. But unfortunately, because it's still using gas and because the incentives aren't really there right now for air source heat pumps, even after rebates, it still comes out right around $2 million. And that wasn't a project that we saw would be successful with as a congressionally directed spending. With the Department of Energy, they're looking to target kind of getting off of natural gas. And so that's why we didn't feel comfortable putting that forward as a potential earmark project. So it was still about a $2 million price tag to go with that particular option. Looking at a just straight up boiler replacement, which I think is getting more to the question that Ann was asking earlier, which would continue us on natural gas, that's in the realm of about $300,000. So it is a substantial difference.
And I think that's the longer discussion that we need to have as a legislature before accepting any sort of grant like this, because that's quite a bit of a difference.
This last congressionally directed funding request that we made, it took, I think, a full year to come through, so Just so
Plenty
you
of
know,
time.
we probably have time. Mike Lane.
To that point, I think that if we're not going to do it, we should decide that now. We shouldn't say a year from now, we might turn down the grant, because that doesn't look good. But the question I wanted to ask, and I didn't think about it before, you mentioned the CDL testing site would not qualify for this. Can I ask why?
I'm going to have to look back because Bridget has been the brains behind these requests.
Based on the guidance we received, that would qualify under what would be considered a workforce development or readiness project, and no capital or construction projects would be allowed under that account. So it has to fit within the eligibilities of the various federal agencies' accounts, and that didn't fit.
But does that mean there might be other grant funding?
There likely is other grant funding, just not through the congressionally directed spending opportunity.
Okay, well that would be good news if we could get some grant funding otherwise.
Sure, we can look for that.
Mike Sigler.
My question is, I guess for Terry. Terry, when we built the airport, when we revitalized that, we put in heat pumps there. Do those run at capacity, or is there a way we could tie into that system with this new build? Or is it too far away?
You know, I wish Orel was here to answer, and I don't know if he's able to answer this right now. My understanding is we are still using some amount of natural gas at the airport. So my suspicion would be that they're running at capacity, since we still do have an additional natural gas load at the airport itself. So I don't know that we'd be able to tie into that system.
All right, thanks, Terry.
Any other questions or comments on this subject?
Thank you for that input, and I think we'll do a deeper dive into this and at the next F&I committee meeting with Terry and Orel, and get at some of these questions that have been raised, namely that we do have very aggressive capital plan over the next several years, and we will be looking for some direction in terms of priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. So our acting county attorney is on a well-deserved vacation. I don't think we have any kind of written report from her. Is that correct? Okay. Then Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett.
Thank you. My first update is to let you all know that finance staff have continued to work very hard on closing out 2023 books. That is going along well. We need to start reviewing the entries that have been made in preparation for the upcoming audit, which will begin the first week of May, and the auditors plan to be here for the entire month of May. My second update is the NREM foreclosure process. We currently have 27 properties, 12 residential, 15 vacant or commercial. We have scheduled the informational meeting for the public for the auction information for June 17th, and the public auction will be held on June 24th. Both of those will be held up at the Whole Health Conference Room. And then I have the sales tax report for the month of February. According to the comptroller, tax collections in all of New York State increased by 1.6% in February. Unfortunately for us, most of that was in New York City. The county and city collections in the rest of the state decreased by 2.2%, and nearly 2/3, or 37 of 57 counties, experienced year-over-year decreases. For Tompkins County, we are in that decrease. The total sales tax for February for all municipalities in the county decreased 3.24% for the month of February. The county share mirrors that at a decrease of 3.24%. The municipalities saw a decrease of 2.64%, and the city of Ithaca has a 3.92% decrease.
It's a way to sober us up, Lori. Any questions or comments? Randy.
Thank you, Lori. How is our revenue for our accounts and our interest income? Is that doing better than budget, or?
I have not done that report yet this quarter, so I can let you know. I know that we are still hovering around the 5% mark, so I believe we will show that it will be higher.
Okay, well, another month's fine, just asking.
Anything else for Finance Director? Okay, thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Are there any resolutions to be added to or withdrawn from the agenda? Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. For advisory board appointments, from the Health and Human Services Committee to the Human Rights Commission, Cassandra Ponton, member, and Griana Krubakar, member. From the Public Safety Committee to the Advisory Board on Indigent Representation, Aubrey Hedsnecker, member. John Fitzgerald, member. Jason Leifer, member, and Joseph Kirby, member. From the resolutions from the Public Safety Committee, Resolution B, budget adjustment, Department of Emergency Response, Rapid Medical Response, ID number 12285. Resolution C, additional positions, Department of Emergency Response, ID 12284. Resolution D, budget adjustment, Department of Emergency Response, authorization to transfer unspent grant funds, ID 12283. Resolution E, authorization to accept fiscal year 2023 State Homeland Security Program grant, Department of Emergency Response, ID 12281. From the Health and Human Services Committee, Resolution F, authorization to accept funds, execute contract and budget adjustment, opioid settlement funds, Whole Health, ID 12297. Resolution G, budget adjustment, County Office for the Aging, reappropriating revenues and expenses to 2024, ID number 12239. Resolution H, budget adjustment, Tompkins County Office for the Aging, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, budget increase, ID number 12288. And Resolution I, budget adjustment, Department of Social Services, increase of spending, authority for mandated childcare, daycare program, ID number 12252. Somebody like to move the consent agenda? Veronica moves. Travis seconds. Have a vote, please.
It's John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
12 ayes, consent agenda passes.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to standing and special committees. From the Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Our next meeting is tomorrow, April 3rd at 3 p.m. We have a 119-page agenda packet for this committee with a very robust and full agenda. Some topics to note: our homeless and housing update. We'll have a conversation with our county administrator and our commissioner of Department of Social Services, Kit Kephart, around the idea of a Code Blue 365, for lack of a better term, or some extension of our current programs and how to address that issue. We'll also have a preliminary report from the Planning and Sustainability Department, along with others, on the homeless response system data and some information that Katie Borgala and her team have been putting together. Also, we will have a conversation with a number of folks around what a possible Tompkins County living wage might look like. And that, again, is just the beginning of the conversation. And that'll be part of our meeting, as well as a update on our broadband and the authorization of a partnership to expand high-speed internet service to unserved addresses in Tompkins County. There's some Arts, Culture, and Tourism Award grants on there as well, and a few other things, but those are the four big, real meaty topics. So if you can make it in person, love to have you. If you make it on Zoom, that's good as well. So that, again, tomorrow is April 3rd at 3 p.m. The other thing I wanted to mention for my legislative colleagues is the Ithaca Board of Realtors has their annual legislative luncheon on March 24th. You should have received an email in your inbox.
April 24th.
Sorry, did I say March? Yeah, that's about par for where I am these days. It is April 24th from 12 to 2. And if you didn't get it in your county email, it may have ended up, if you keep a separate political email, they went to mine and not my county. So if you have a desire to RSVP to that, please do so, as that's usually a good event that hasn't happened for quite some time with the pandemic. So that's the only report that I have.
Thank you. Could you say the date of that luncheon again, please?
Yeah, I apologize. It is April 24th from 12 to 2.
I had April 12th in my book. Is that incorrect?
Did I write that down wrong? Hold
I
on.
don't know. One of us did. 12th?
Oh, you know, I wrote March, so I'm, okay, wow, I'm really doing myself a big disservice.
Look in 2024 calendar.
Yep, I was on the wrong date, so you're right, it's April 12th, thank you. I was looking at 2023's announcement.
If there's an email, could that go out to all of us? I don't remember receiving it.
I will recirculate one when I find the correct one. I apologize, that's the fumble of the day for me, so.
Yeah, there was actually just another one, I think, today that came through. At least I got an additional one today.
Me too.
So.
Greg, I just have to point out, you're always, making fun of paper calendars and such. 1-0 is the score right now.
Seriously. We can't have a green policy, though, if we keep chopping down trees to keep track of our stuff, so.
Okay, it's 1-1.
1-1, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Greg? Mike Lane.
Greg, I think that one thing our county lacks is enough planning about additional water and sewer services. And I wondered if your committee is thinking about that and the possibility of finding some way to look at what areas might need those kinds of expansions to help us with building new homes and for people that might want to live here.
That's a great topic, and I'm a strong proponent of having that conversation because I do think our lack of investment in infrastructure over the last several decades is one of the causes of the housing shortage that we currently see in our community. I know that IAED did their water and sewer study, and I do have it on the committee agenda for at some point this year to have a discussion around infrastructure and how that supports housing. But also there's a concept that I'm trying to get some traction on around hopefully the state could create a program similar to FAST New York, which is a program for shovel-ready economic development sites. But I think something around a FAST New York for residential homes, for sale homes, where we could essentially get the entitlements in place for a parcel, get the infrastructure in place, use state funds, and then work with developers to do that. So that's kind of a concept that we're at some point going to run with. Obviously, for the first part of the year in HED, we want to focus on homelessness and the unhoused and that response, but that the infrastructure as it relates to housing and site locations, et cetera, is something for a couple of months from now that we'll definitely be working on.
That's good news. Thank you.
Of course.
Sigler.
Is that FAST New York for housing that Heather was talking about?
Heather did mention it. Yeah, it's been, I'm crediting Heather with bringing that up at the last HED meeting, but it's something that's been discussed in various circles and various levels. So, yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments for Greg? Great. Thank you. Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Lee Shurtleff, Chair.
Facilities and Infrastructure will meet on Thursday, the 18th of April at the late hour of 9 a.m. And I think Lisa just gave us a preview of what one of the topics will be. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Lee? Thank you. Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Thank you very much. We will be meeting on Thursday, 2 days from now at 10 a.m. I forget, 10 a.m. We have a couple of presentations. We're going to have an update from our strategic plan folks, consultants, Barry Dunn. Lisa sent out a message you all should have gotten about the strategic plan, where we're at, kind of a draft form. So please read that over. We're going to have some discussion time with everyone. Along those lines, we're going to also start looking at some segments of the charter. We've had discussions about in 2 years there are going to be 16 legislators. We also have the change in elections law, and we had discussed bringing out some sections of the charter just to read, to discuss. Are there any areas that we're going to need to change going forward? So this is kind of like our first time to discuss some of that. And we're also going to have a presentation by our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Charlene Holmes, is going to give us kind of a fuller report about the work she's doing and all the things that encompass her job. So again, Thursday at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Questions or comments for Amanda? I'll just mention that the strategic plan will be discussed in that committee, and then assuming nothing strange happens there, it'll then be scheduled for the next legislature meeting on the 16th for discussion purposes only.
And then I guess I would just ask, and then after that, will it come back to GO for a vote, or what happens after that? Okay.
I think what we're going to do is provide the legislature and in the public setting the opportunity to review the plan, comment on the plan, the opportunity for us to take any of that feedback back and input back and make any final edits to it. And then we would be coming back through GO with a resolution to accept or adopt or whatever that verb is.
Great, thank you.
Anything else for GO? Okay, thank you, Amanda. Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Ann Corman, Chair.
Thank you. We have not met since our last legislature meeting. Our next meeting was scheduled for the 8th of April, but due to the important event on that day, the eclipse, we have rescheduled for April 11th at 1 p.m. That's next Thursday at 1 p.m. And we don't have the agenda yet, so we're still working on that. I wanted to, though, read an email from the CASE board, our Climate and Sustainable Energy Board. As chair of your CASE board, I am extending a big thank you from all 11 of us who serve on the CASE board. This is a deciding decade for the world on climate action. New York State is showing strong leadership and ambition to create regulations and incentives, carrots and sticks, to mobilize and accelerate actions on many fronts. And you are showing that Tompkins County strongly supports climate action and understands that it must occur across many dimensions simultaneously. Your vote helps our volunteer CASE members know that our hard work is valued and has impact. We are here to be of service to you, our Tompkins County communities, and the planet. Please reach out if you have any requests, suggestions, questions, concerns, and our board will be responsive. If we don't have the subject matter expertise, we will find it. So thanks again. And this was in response to us voting in favor of the resolution to ask New York State to pass certain resolutions during their budget season, which is still going on. And just wanted to mention in response to what my colleague Mezzi said about the HED agenda being 100+ pages. So I appreciate our clerks and fellow legislators. You can ask them to do this, either not have your packet printed. They're doing a hybrid. For me, is the committee that I'm chairing, they print out the whole thing, so it's just a little bit easier that I'm not fiddling with electronics during the committee. And then for other meetings, they are just printing the agenda, but not the whole packet. So you can ask them to do something that suits your needs. So thank you, and I'm done with my report unless I forgot anything. Veronica?
Any questions or comments for Ann? Thank you, Ann. Next up is the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee. So we met on March 25th. It was the first time we had met this year. We got updates on contracting, and all that piece of the project is going very well. It was reported that of the 67 grants that were awarded, only 2 have withdrawn. And the dollar amount of those 2 withdrawn awards is just a little over $16,000. I just want to remind you that the original program, the whole program was more than $6.5 million, so that $16,000 is a very tiny number, so that's good. Of course, there's still a ways to go, and it's possible other projects won't go forward, but we'll see. In contracting with our consultant, the MRB Group, it was always understood that at some point the accounting and reporting work would taper off to the point where the county could take it over completely. As it transitioned to that time, the committee voted to take that unused $16,758 and use it to pay for overtime for county staff to track the expenditures and reimbursements of the Recovery Fund projects. This will allow us to continue to work with the MRB Group for longer and to allow them to do some of the data and analysis and other work that they are doing for us. Then we also had 3 grantees that had asked us to change the scope of their work to a large enough degree that we felt like we needed to bring it before the committee. So we approved 2 of those 3 requested changes. The 3rd change was not approved, and that situation is still evolving and is still under discussion. So that might come back in another form. We may have to have another meeting relatively soon to rediscuss that one. But in the meantime, we do not have any more meetings scheduled at this time. Any questions about the Community Recovery Fund? Next up, Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Mike Lane, Chair.
We will meet again on Thursday, April 11th at 9:00 a.m., and we'll certainly try to make sure that there's still some money left in the county.
Any questions or comments for Mike? Okay. Thank you, Mike. Workforce, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We met last Wednesday and had some good discussion. 2 main topics were about the county website and how WDIC's work could fit into it, and have we even updated our page? Do people even know we have a page on it? But also, how is this going to, both our committee's work and diversity and inclusion work being done throughout the organization, going to integrate into the new county website? You may remember the county is totally revamping its website and is in the beginning of that process now. We also heard some robust updates from our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Charlene Holmes. I imagine that not all, but some of that will come up at GO as well on Thursday. In fact, the GO meeting was quite heavily advertised at the WDIC meeting, so I'm sure it'll be good. Charlene came with a couple of her interns, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, to present some of their work looking at old demographic metrics of our workforce. And we just sort of had a starter discussion, maybe starter for the committee. They're doing a lot more in-depth work on what sorts of diversity tracking could we and would we want to and should we do going forward. And I have, we talked a little bit about how the DEI work looks different in different departments, of course, because they look very different. The legislature is a department, I guess, also. So one question came up for us that I will ask all of you. I guess the background for this about equity is that equity is one of our county values now, and it is described as, or it is defined, elaborated, I don't know. Our values page says, equity, we sustain a workplace community that ensures fairness through diversity and inclusion, eliminates structurally oppressive systems, and builds trust, appreciation, and opportunities for all. And the draft strategic plan preview includes some draft values, which still includes equity with a slightly expanded definition saying, we sustain a workplace community that ensures fairness through diversity and inclusion by embracing learning and best practices, eliminating structurally oppressive systems, and building trust, appreciation, a sense of belonging, and opportunities for all. So the differences where the draft definition adds in a sense of belonging and adds in embracing learning and best practices. So my question for all of you is, what do you need in order to ensure that your decision-making is equity-focused? That's probably not an immediate response question, though if you have a response, please share. But think about that, because our decision-making, it should be equity-focused, but it's not like a litmus test of whether we're good people. It's something that we're all gonna need support in doing, and we should think about what support that might be and ask for it.
Questions or comments for Veronica? Ann.
Yeah, I think for me, for instance, one thing is attending the diversity, the equity and inclusion, I think it's called the DEI Leadership Summit, which is coming up, what was it? And next week, maybe?
A week from today.
And so part of that, what I hope to get out of that is learning more, because I didn't come in here as a legislator being an expert in equity. So I'm hoping to, as was added to the strategic plan or the draft strategic plan, I'm hoping to get more education on, you know, what does it mean putting on that lens of equity. So I guess I just need to learn.
Other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Next up, Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. And I certainly don't want to be duplicative, but I did want to speak just a little bit about the meet and greet we had with rapid medical response personnel, because it was really exciting. These people are ready to go. And we had a chance to have, I thought, a fascinating discussion about the state of our emergency response services in the community at present. And I'll just mention a couple of the things. One of them was how many different jobs these people are holding. That going out on emergency calls you'd think would be a full-time job, and it is, but they also work for multiple ambulance services. They do overtime. One of the people there has 4 different jobs, and I think that gives us some idea of how in demand these services are and necessary. And then I'd also mention the discussion we had about how they are on the front line of dealing with people overdosing, and the number of people they've given Narcan to and saved their lives. This is an important function in our community. And the program that we're initiating today is just a very, very good thing. It is going to make a real difference. Lisa, you mentioned one. We can't make policy from an anecdote, but I think that is indicative of what we're going to see, that this program will actively support all of the existing services, and we're going to see a substantial improvement in response times when people are in real need. So great news. The Public Safety Committee met last week on Tuesday, March 26th. I had just a little bit of information. One, I always give the jail numbers. We're at 57 and 0 board outs today. At our meeting, we talked about several different things. We went through our goals for the year, but there were two items I wanted to mention. One is related to reimagining public safety, because if you recall the resolution we passed, we had, I think there's 17 different areas we wanted to work in. One was transparency, in making sure that the public could see what we're doing from a public safety standpoint. And our sheriff is with us, so he can come up here and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Sheriff's Department has just launched a use of force page. So adding to the other data that's been available there, you now can see all of the incidents graphed out. And just to give you a sense of it, our Sheriff's Department responded to almost 18,000 incidents, and they had 41 incidents where they used force. So it's much less than 1% of the time any force was used. And again, the dashboard breaks down what kind of force was used. And I think the most severe there were maybe 2 or perhaps 3 uses of tasers. There were no uses of guns. And this, I think, is some very useful perspective on what our police agency is really doing in the community. And it is not going out and using force. That is a last resort. And I think it's a testament to the training and activity of our Sheriff's Department. I thought it was a very good piece of data. The other item I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about is the GIVE grant, which is coming up. New York State has again requested submission of a grant. This year, the county is doing it in collaboration with the city of Ithaca as the lead. But we also had a discussion about how did GIVE work in 2023. And just for the people at home, GIVE stands for Gun-Involved Violence Elimination. And New York State had actively solicited Tompkins County to apply for this grant early in 2023 because coming out of the pandemic, we had a lot of shots fired in our community. And I'm sure all of you are aware that you'd see reports of that in the media. Part of the purpose of GIVE is to work to identify people who have been involved in gun use in the community and the areas where there's been a lot of gun activity and to concentrate there. And the Sheriff's Department, in connection with other police agencies in our community, have arrested several of the people that clearly have been involved in using guns, and they've seized a lot of weapons, and the incidence of shots fired has gone down dramatically. This is, again, very good news for our community. I'd offer if our sheriff wanted to add anything I said there, but that was what we talked about at the Public Safety Committee. I would be happy to try to answer any questions.
Travis.
Over the last few years, sitting in several community meetings, having incidents on my street, several of them with gun violence, it is great to see in the reports that we get from the Sheriff's Department that we are seeing a removal of guns off the street. I would imagine coming out of winter, we'll see an uptick in the use of guns, but we're also seeing a tremendous uptick in removing guns off the street, and that's great news. The community needs that. People need to know that if they engage in that behavior, the chances of them being arrested have increased. So it's nice to see that the program is actually working and working well.
Any other questions or comments? Ann?
Yeah, I'm also glad to see that the program is working. I just also wanted to mention with meeting with the new folks that are coming on board for the rapid medical response, the number one reason that they said they work many jobs is because it's low paying and they can't afford to live with just one job.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And one of the things that's up in Albany that they're talking about is changing definitions about emergency services to say it's an essential service, which sounds obvious, but it's not currently defined as an essential service, and the pay follows that. So, yeah, we've got work to do there. Yeah.
Anything else for the Public Safety Committee? Okay, thank you. Downtown Facilities Special Committee, Randy Brown, Chair.
Thank you. Our next meeting is April 9th here in Chambers at 9 a.m. Our agenda just got put together, and we're gonna update the RFQ process and understand who and how that's distributed, and any comments people might have on the RFQ for architects and engineers. We're going to discuss the State Historic Preservation Office and how we must or need to interact with them in the plan for that. And also about the deconstruction of the two buildings that will be removed, and Cornell's assistance and tracking of that data, and the legislature's thoughts on that. And then we'll be voting on accepting a grant to do some testing in the area for in-ground heat pumps, and we're getting a grant for the testings of the soils and whatnot. So.
Questions for Randy? Okay, thank you, Randy. And last but not least, Health and Human Services Committee, Travis Brooks, Vice Chair.
So we met last week. We had several resolutions that made it to consent agenda. We had a great presentation by HSC, and the discussion was around new agencies coming on board with HSC, what that process looks like. Some of the discussion and questions that were raised were, how would they balance current agencies that are receiving funding with new agencies? What does that look like? What would the legislature like to see? So I'm sure that conversation will continue. But it's nice that they heard some of us when we were doing the budget, and the question came up about how community agencies would come on board and what that process would look like, how it would be open to the community. So they've managed to make that happen, which is great. And so that conversation will continue, and we'll meet again in a few weeks.
Questions or comments for Travis? All right, thank you. There are no individual member filed resolutions or up to minutes of the previous meeting, March 19th. Does somebody want to move that? Travis moves, Veronica seconds. Discussion about the minutes? Let's have a vote.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane, sorry.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
12 ayes. Minutes accepted.
Thank you. Is there any unfinished business? Okay, we are going to move into executive session. We have 3 items for executive session. We have the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. And then we have 2 matters concerning the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Is there somebody that would move to go into executive session? Mike Lane moves. Is there a second? Veronica seconds.
Rich John.
Yes.
Foreman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Sigler.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
12 ayes. Motion passes.
Okay, we do not anticipate taking any action when we come out of executive session. We're going to take a few minutes to close down the cameras and such, so we'll take a break.
Hey, Lee, that was great. Your speaking, that was great, what you said. I agree. Great.